IMHO 101 Jams. It's Charles.
Miss Mac.
And we are back on this very, very special episode today. The family. The family. You know, Max, when people say that the term the family, it has a lot of different connotations depending on the way that you enunciate it. But today we have some families, some people who have great insight, some inspirational women in particular. And first up for this 3 o'clock hour, some of you may have seen her perform publicly. Some of you may heard her perform when she sings. Some of you may have read some of her work. I'm talking about none other than the wife, the mother of the real life Joneses, Miss Yolonda Coles-Jones. How are you, Yolanda?
I'm okay.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Very welcome. So, like I told you when we were getting set up, I don't even know where to start exactly because you just have so much going on. Yeah. But one thing I do know is that being here today, I'm sure you are an inspiration. And because whenever I see you in public, you always have a smile no matter what, a hug, and when you perform, you move people. So some people have just the gifts, you know. So I definitely wanted to compliment you on that. But let's just start with the project, you know, the real life Joneses. I know one of the things in the description of it, the first thing you refer to is the old saying, keeping up with the Joneses. So give us a little background on that and why you chose that title.
Yeah, so there's this idiom that I'm sure, many people have heard, the term keeping up with the Joneses. And when you think of that, you kind of think of this idyllic family, this perfect family of folks who live down the street where nothing ever goes wrong, and things are always perfect, and it's like the thing that people aspire to be, and it just so happens that our last name is Jones, so I guess we just wanted to play on that and unpack that, kind of turn the whole thing on its ear, because our family, the Joneses, is definitely not perfect at all, not by any stretch of the imagination. And we were noticing, actually a couple of our photos went viral on social media. So viral meaning like in every stretch of the imagination, the term viral, yes. Our portraits have like traveled the world.
Nice.
And so people were just, hashtagging goals and hashtagging I want this family and hashtagging I want this to be my life. And, we were just kind of sitting back looking at it like, wait a minute, I don't think people really understand like all the things. Right. All the stuff. This is not, so, portraits are beautiful and lovely and good. And usually, you get all cleaned up and put your best face forward on a portrait.
Yeah.
But things aren't always perfect and things are not perfect. And so we really wanted to just be transparent with people, especially young people growing up and aspiring to be mothers or partners or business owners or whatever the case. We wanted just to keep it real about all of it. It's not all good all the time. So feeding off of that, I look at you and Will, your husband, and Will's been on the show. Love whenever he and I get the rare opportunity to sit and chat. Love talking to the brother. Because always I feel you can learn something from anyone, but definitely when someone with his intellect, when I have the opportunity to pick their brain, you gotta appreciate it. But saying that, you guys have so much talent, and I'm hearing what you're saying, on how like there's the individual side, but then there's the bond side, of the marriage and of the rearing of family and things like that. So with yourself and some of your individual passions, how do you separate the two, or do you need to separate the two? When you think about things Yolanda wants to do, to show your artistic expression, versus being a mom and a wife. Yeah, so the lines blur for sure. Because much of who I am is what I do. They're, it's kind of all in there married together. My creative expressions are birthed out of things that I'm passionate about. And a lot of the fodder for the things that I create ends up being my family, and my own life and my, personal experiences. So I definitely make sure that I carve time out to spend time alone, and also to work on my own creative endeavors. And I'm also partnered with this other human, and we have these children that we're raising together, and we have these businesses that we are partnering to raise up as well. So yeah, the things just kind of all happen at the same time, simultaneously. They merge together. Yeah.
How about the pressure that it takes to, you want to be a good wife and you want to be a good mother to your kids, and sometimes the pressure for that, especially to be a good mother, is kind of overwhelming because you're trying to make sure that you take care of everything, and especially if you have a large family and you're very busy, things fall by the wayside, and you feel like you're constantly. I know I've taken my kids to the doctor, and the appointment was the day before.
Right.
So the pressure. I think there's something to be said about that when it comes to being a mother and trying to handle all the different things that a household contains.
Yes, definitely. That's one of my favorite things to talk about, actually. If folks are like reading my blog, they'll see a lot about that, a lot about paring down, and the times that I've gone through, periods of upheaval and being completely overwhelmed to the point where I've had like emotional breakdowns, and learning from those experiences that I cannot do it all, and sort of, moving from those places and realizing that I get to, I can configure and delegate things, and that's good for me, and I need to carve out time to set boundaries for myself. And now I have been able to arrive at a place in my life where I can sort of construct a staff for myself.
Yeah. Hey, look, I got to tell you that when I reached out to you and stuff, at first I thought you were acting a little brand new at first. I was like, I got this email saying we're
being honest.
Yeah, we are confirming that Yolonda will be on your show. I respect the hustle. Don't get me wrong. But then I'm glad that I still, when I saw you, it was still the same Yolonda.
Yes.
You weren't like, I'll have my people call you.
Oh,
you
no,
didn't say that.
Changed. No, I just realized, and I because listen, I grew up in a context where there was this figurative, like Proverbs 31 woman, and it was understood about this woman that she did all of this stuff like by herself. That was the understanding. She raised her children. She got up early. She went to bed late. She oversaw like everything that had to do with her household, and her children, rose up and called her blessed. And I think that the thing that was missing in that context, I really feel like, is that this woman had some help. And we are in a society where, we live in our separate houses and our neighborhoods, and we are kind of isolated from help. And so then the messaging is, you have to do all of these things. You have to do it. You have to be the one to do it all. And that's not true. You're not the one that has to do it all. If you, especially if you can, you do have to, be a little brave sometimes and go about building community around yourself, but you can do it, and that's what's needful in order for you to stay sane, because it's a lot for one person to try to do it all, and I don't try to do it all anymore, and that's been liberating. So
awesome. And now with the real life Joneses, one of the things that that I really appreciate and respect, about what you guys are doing with your children is the part of teaching them on how to be themselves, how to respect themselves and be individuals.
Absolutely.
Which I know is hard, because I'm sure, all the parents here, that are listening, can recognize on how sometimes, you may want to influence and impart certain things on your children, but that the greater society is also going to play their role and play their influence. And sometimes if something's not popular, it's kind of hard, to get your child to understand that this is what's needed, and you still can have a fulfilled life, and you still can enjoy life, even if you, maybe, follow this path that I'm trying to lay out for you.
Right.
So just touch on because I know you're an advocate for homeschooling and things like that. So just touch on sort of that decision making, when it comes to, sort of those pillars and that foundation that you're laying for your children when it comes to, things like homeschooling. I know Will does, he exercises, regularly with them, the diet. So just things like that, give us a little insight.
Sure, absolutely. So we are a home-based educating family. I don't really like the term homeschool anymore, only because because we aren't like at home trying to mimic what's happening in the school setting. We don't have desks that we sit at. We don't have a classroom necessarily. That's not what it looks like at all. It's just home is base, and really home equals family. So family is the base of what we're doing, and we're trying to raise up people who are self-assured and who are eager to learn and who are curious and who feel confident enough to inquire and go and seek out information that they feel compelled to seek out. we also, I mean, and I'm just an advocate for paying attention to your kids. Even if you don't decide to officially register as a homeschooler, just taking time to make sure that you realize that you have these little people that you've produced and are growing up in your household and in your space, and everything that is around you and is around them is teaching them something. So just kind of paying attention to what you're doing.
What did you find that traditional schooling was lacking, which is why you chose to do home-based schooling?
Yeah, so I wanted my children to be able to look at curriculum and find and see themselves portrayed in a light that wasn't always negative or always missing. I'm raising people of color, and unfortunately in American school systems, and I think it's, things are changing now, but there isn't a lot of messaging that is affirming to children of color, and it's even as it relates to us. It's not that way in society, and it's not that way in school. And so before our children leave us, going wherever they're going, because they're not going to be with us always, we just wanted to make sure that they had a really good sense of self. And the messaging that we sort of get in society that tells them that they're not enough, that they're not legitimate, that their hair is wrong, their skin is too dark, their noses are too wide. We wanted to make sure that they understood that those things were good and right before someone dug it all up and made them feel like they're not acceptable for being who they are.
Thank you for that. We're going to take a quick break. Family, you're tuned into In My Humble Opinion on 101 Jams. We're speaking with Yolonda Coles-Jones, creative professional. And we're talking about the family dynamic, okay? Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is Razor.
And this is Max of In My Humble Opinion. Our friends at Mattress Firm would like to ask if you know when it's time to buy a new mattress.
It's time to buy a new mattress if
you wake up with aches and pains that go away throughout the day.
Your arms or shoulders fall asleep throughout the night, or you wake up tossing and turning.
You feel the coils while lying in bed.
No matter what the temperature in your bedroom, you always seem to feel too hot in bed.
You've outgrown your current mattress or are in need of a larger one.
Let their trained sleep experts match you with the perfect mattress.
With locations in Charlottesville, Greene County, and Harrisonburg, Mattress Firm. Save money, sleep happy, 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 happy.
Support for programming this hour comes from our friends at Walmart. Walmart wants to remind you to save money and live better.
Many of us promise ourselves that one day we'll begin making healthy lifestyle choices. Don't push it off any longer. Fry Family Fitness can help. A personal trainer and fitness coach will work with you to develop an individualized workout and meal plan that puts you on track to healthy living. If you're dealing with an injury, no problem. Fry Family Fitness can still help. Lifestyle change without sacrificing lifestyle. Telephone number 434-806-7339. Special pricing for veterans.
IMHO 101 Jams. It's Charles.
Miss Max.
We have the real life Joneses in the studio with us today. We have Miss Yolonda. We have Mr. Brother Will. Brother Will has joined us. Brother Will Jones. Welcome to the show, my man.
Yes, sir. Happy to be here.
Thank you. So I want to pick up from where we left off, if y'all don't mind. Again, being a parent, particularly a black parent, and having that knowledge of self. I wanted to get any possible stories from you all that created a learning experience for a parent listening, because I know for myself, I know there's been times where sometimes you got to explain to your kids. Sometimes there's home talk, and then there's public talk for lack of better saying. But with that, like, have you ran into any issues, and what did you learn about when you're trying to teach black self-respect in a predominantly white area? Like, has there ever been a time where a kid came home and was just like upset, or even maybe another parent even may have upset you guys? How do you deal with things like that?
There's so many times. I mean, countless opportunities to have these difficult conversations from the time that our oldest child was 3, 4, and someone, walked up to us at the pediatrician's office and, was speaking in Spanish actually behind me. I'll never forget it. And I can understand Spanish, so I know what she said. She's like, "Oh, look at this baby in front of me," talking to someone on the phone. "She's so beautiful. She's black, but she's so beautiful." And then there was another colleague of mine at at school at UVA. I was attending some thesis presentations, and I had her with me. And this lady, this classmate of mine, walked up to her and said, "She's so pretty to be so dark." I was just like, that was the beginning. That was just the beginning. She was 3. How
did you respond?
So
to either of those?
Thankfully, in those scenarios, I don't really. I respond slowly, and by the time things hit me, I'm no longer in the face of the person who has brought the offense, and I end up having to try to process it otherwise.
I'm gonna give y'all a little button that y'all can push that'll go in the air like Batman and some razor. When things like that happen, call Brother Razor.
Call Brother Razor.
Yes, indeed.
Well, we got a whole list of things. We got 4 kids, so there's plenty to talk about, and they're all beautifully dark. So
I got a whole lot of crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, it's tough, and our children, now that they're older, much older, they can see and read and hear, and so we don't have to, it's not us that we're not shielding them from anything necessarily. They encounter these things on their own, and they come back to us with questions like, why can't I play with my gun outside? My 4-year-old, and that brings up, for me, it brings up Tamir Rice, and I have to figure out a way to explain to my child why I don't feel the safest with him going outside in a way that doesn't terrify him of life entirely. And then my older children, they want to understand why these people are dying, why people are being treated in the way that they're being treated, why they don't see anybody in their community that looks like them working in this role or in that role. They ask good questions, and that means that we have to dig deep and give them honest answers that are fair.
You just touched on something that me and my wife talk about all the time, is that I try to get Will and I are in the same business, and I talk to a lot of youth, and I try to get them to understand that when the Second Amendment was written, we weren't configured into that process. So when we go outside and we exercise our Second Amendment as children with guns, our children are viewed as you're not supposed to have that gun.
Right.
You're a threat.
Right.
Even though it's a pop gun.
Right.
Even though you're using your finger.
Oh, yeah.
We even went through a situation where we had to go to school because my son used his finger to point. Now, when the average child points, only one finger goes out. But for our African American child, he had a gun in his hand. He was simulating a gun. How do you draw that conclusion? So people don't actually understand what it's like to be an African American living in America.
Oh, absolutely. There's the immediate misrecognition and, assignment of some sort of nefarious intention. Just because the child is black or the person is black, people assume you don't have to be doing anything. You just are black. And so by virtue of being black, you're up to something, something that you shouldn't be doing. So that's tough. I mean, absolutely. Absolutely.
I know one of the situations that we deal with our own kids, our 2 of our boys are teenage, or close to being a teenager, and so girls no longer have the cooties, right? And it's actually hard for me to advise them of this because they are interested in girls, but they feel like they're forced to only date white girls because they're the minority where we live, and so that's a thing for them. So as a parent, how do I address that,
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's largely where it is, it's geographical. It's where we live. We're in a space where we are not in abundance here. Black people are not in abundance. If we were in DC or if we were in Atlanta, if we were in Detroit or somewhere like that, it might be a little bit easier. But the unfortunate thing is, there's much history behind all of that.
For sure.
How deep you want to go, but it's tough, and it really is tough. And I think it's one thing for it to be proximity. It's another thing for it to be messaging that causes you to just choose to close yourself off to anyone that looks like you. I mean, I feel like the two are different. If proximity is one thing, maybe there aren't any people of color around you, and so then you're left with the decision of relating on a soul to soul, sort of like level. But I've heard people say, "Oh, I'll never date a black girl. Or I'll never date a black man," and they have all of these stereotypes that they bring into the conversation. I think that's when it becomes problematic.
Yeah, and Philadelphia is another city that comes to mind because I have quite a bit of family up there. I never forget my niece came down here to visit, and one of the things she said to me, she was like surprised, number one by by how many white people she saw, right? Because she's from inner city Philly,
Right.
But then also she was surprised by how many, in her words, black boys like black girls. It was just something
that was
foreign
surprising
to her.
that black boys liked black girls.
I'm sorry, white. I'm sorry.
Excuse me. I was like, I wanted to follow you.
Yeah, thank you
Make sure
for clarifying that. But yeah, so it surprised her because and it's so you only know what you know. So from her standpoint, she's and her friends never had to deal with being a minority as far as like in their community. You know what I'm saying? But then at the same time, there's a depiction that's given to us as well,
right.
Which is another reason why why I respect so much the black self-respect that you guys teach, because a lot of times people see the fairer skin, fairer hair as better, more beautiful.
Yeah.
So Will, is that like when it comes to your sons and things like that, and teaching them about respecting yourself and respecting your sister. And I mean that figuratively and literal sister, but them appreciating themselves and not looking at the majority around them. Like what's that balancing act, man? For them to maybe see more of the other kids, but they're saying, but my dad and my mom told me, like that black is beautiful though, and I'm just as good when we're living in a society that tells them otherwise.
Man, fortunately for my sons, as of now, we haven't really had to navigate that.
Yeah.
They're still very little.
It's still
Yeah. With them being 5, we haven't had to touch on that yet. But I imagine that it would be a thing that we would show them what we want them to do. So like me showing them that I appreciate their mother, her complexion, her hair texture, all of those things I think will lead to them being able to appreciate it. Them, like our sons wanted to lock their hair because they wanted to lock their hair. So we are putting a foundation in them that I believe will cause them to love themselves and not need to look for love in someone that doesn't look like them, but be able to appreciate because they appreciate their sisters, because they appreciate their mother, and because they're exposed to a plethora of blackness that causes them to know that even within blackness I can find some other sort of hair texture if I wanted to, and not have to go into a white into dating white women to try to find some sort of love, some sort of whatever it is that we look for when we look for a mate in that way.
Yeah, that good hair, right?
Yeah.
That's, when I was growing up, that's what they said. Man, you got to get your red bones. You got the good hair. Kids have, you know what I'm talking about.
Messaging.
Hey, now we get to the ignorant part of the show right here. I was sitting there, I'm cracking up. I wasn't raised right, so my mind thing. When y'all was saying all that, I was so proud of y'all, but I was like, I'm from Wakanda, no colonizer. Hey, let me play the disclaimer.
I'm glad you brought that.
Let me play the disclaimer.
Did you have a follow-up remark on that,
No,
Yolanda?
I was just gonna say I'm so glad that movie came up, because that has been so important. The fact that body of work has been released, and it is beautifully showcasing what people of color might. So Wakanda is this fictitious place, right? But in the context of that,
it's home.
We get to see all these beautiful hues of people, these actors and actresses with their hair in its natural state. We get to see wide noses and wide lips, and we get to see gray hair, and we get to see intellect. We get to see science, technology, engineering, art, math on display. Tribal traditions, respect for elders, respect for ancestors. All of these things are things that have been robbed from us. Like knowing how to do these things. Yeah. This is not what we came up doing in America. Unfortunately, Black America, by and large. That's not to say everybody. So being able to see this on the big screen, like large scale, has been so important, and brought me to tears actually as I was sitting there watching it myself, and just hearing the conversations that my children are having after seeing it and being like, yes.
And I definitely don't want to overlook that. Even again this weekend, the movie A Wrinkle in Time comes out, which has Ava DuVernay. Ava DuVernay has her directing it, and she was tapped to direct Black Panther at first as well. She she didn't want to do the superhero type thing.
That's okay. Another Black director stepped right on up, and it's magic. It's so good.
And I don't know if you all know, but the book that was written, A Wrinkle in Time, actually depicted a white girl, but she casted the young Black girl to play the lead role.
Yeah.
So doing
power
it big.
Plays,
for sure. That's how we got to do it. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
Yolanda, mom to mom, like what is important for you to teach your daughters, just so that they have good self-assurance and just become well-rounded adults? What are the lessons that you try to make sure you teach them?
Gosh, so many. I think that firstly, I want them to be aware of themselves. I want them to be I want them to know that they have wisdom, deep wisdom inside them that they need only tap into and access. I want them to feel comfortable with their bodies, with whatever their body shapes are, kind of moving from the inner person outward. I don't want them to start from the outside. I want them to start from inside. I talk to them all the time about how brilliant they are and how they ask good questions, and I observe when they observe people's feelings and perceptions. And so I want them to be sensory, inwardly sensory, and I want them to then kind of translate that to the outside and appreciate every part of who they are, and also to make good choices about who they bring into their lives, whether they're friends or lovers. Just being able to decide for themselves what they want for their lives, and then to use discretion with regard to who they let into their sacred space.
I'm sorry, Joe. That's very important that you're investing like that, because what's not in you can't come out of you. So I have to applaud that.
Thank you. And the term perfect family, I got to get you all to answer this before you leave us, because one thing that I noticed is that when it comes to sort of traditional sayings or traditional beliefs, like you guys make sure that's coming from a spiritual place, and there's reason for what you do, and it and it's empowering, to you as a woman, and then also to Will as a man, in your leadership roles, make sure that you're on equal plane and would both contribute. So I'm curious on, like, is there something that stands out to you guys the most, like when it comes to challenging those traditions of what's quote unquote a perfect family? Like that one, it may be hard to do one, and you can name more than one, but I'm just curious on, because I know a lot of people go through that, especially being a young Black couple, on the up and up, and sort of challenging stereotypes. So.
Sure. I mean, there's so many. Will is
you can start. You can start. You can start.
The first thing that comes to mind for me is gender roles, and I know that's deep and that's heavy, but this whole idea of there being things that men do and things that women do in the house or outside the house. And I think that for our family, it's been important for both of us to be able to appreciate that we both have professional aspirations and we both have children. And so coming together as a team, and as partners, to be able to approach the things that we both want to do. We both want to be professional. We both want to be creative. We both want to raise our children, and just kind of saying, it's not just my job to change the diapers when we had children in diapers, and it's not just my job to clean the toilet, and it's not just my job to pay this bill. So being able to have very real and honest conversations, and to stand away from that traditional idea that the man has to do this and the woman has to do that. Whatever works for us, it works for us, and that changes season by season. So just being flexible, I think. I don't know what Will would add to that.
Brother Will?
So you said
just
perfect family. What are we trying to live down? Or
that whole concept.
Yeah.
Like just the stereotypes of a marriage. Some of the miseducation. Of being a couple. Maybe your number one lesson.
as of now, I would probably say what's most important to me now is living against the cultural expectations that are placed on a man. Like she just spoke to gender specific type jobs and stuff like that, but that, you know, that also goes into just how you actually live out like your day, or how you carry out just how you look at yourself. Like, what is a man? Like, does a man just bring home the money? Does a man just does a man just provide discipline, or does a man actually be an emotional support? Does a man actually, with his children, like, does he play a role of one who helps his children, especially young men, to tap into their emotional body? Like, instead of it just always being, boy, you better toughen up, you better suck it up. You know how we attack our young men, and then we train them away from the emotional pieces that are really good for us, being able to express yourself. You're not just mad, maybe you're frustrated, maybe you're lonely, maybe, you know, identifying those things. So for me, the challenge has been to figure out how to teach that to my sons now, so that they don't have to deal with the hang-ups that I have to deal with as a grown man, relearning how to live this life as a family. Because when you have those attachments, it's really hard, especially with someone who is really in tune and like in themselves. When you're dealing with a person that is in tune with themselves, if you approach this relationship the way that men were designed to approach it from a society, then you won't be able to cohabitate. And so it's imperative upon me as a father and as a husband to teach my young men to get this early, so that they will be able to coexist in any relationship, not just a romantic relationship, but in any relationship that they have. I think what we're now trying to do, and the way that we are trying to live transparently, is all to cultivate a culture of being able to be honest and be able to be empathetic and sympathetic to other people.
Got you. Brother Will, Sister Yolanda, we're up against the hour. I'm sorry, but feel free to hang out with us if you like. But definitely, thanks for joining us. I know you guys will be back. Hit us up anytime. Love what you're doing. So therreallifejoneses.com. And if anybody wants to learn more about you, support you, they can go to that website, right?
Thank you. Yes.
Yes,
all right. Reallifejoneses.com. We've been talking to Mr. and Mrs. Will and Yolanda Jones on IMHO. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Thanks for joining us.